So thank you so much for being here today, everybody. We have a really wonderful guest with us today, Lisa Harrington, my good friend. And Lisa, I would absolutely love it if you could just, start by sharing your journey, your path of where you started out with your career, and then how you transitioned out of that career into doing what today, so that the crowd can get to know you a bit.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Let's see. I started out in the insurance industry right out of college, and it was a wonderful industry for me. I loved it. I love learning about all kinds of different businesses, because when you have to insure a business, you learn a lot about how they work. And since I had a management degree, it fit me. It was fun for me. And then about 2009, right when everything was crashing and people said I was absolutely out of my mind, I decided to open my own business. And at the time, after 25 so years in the insurance trade, I said, I'll do some training. I'll do some work with companies who need to set a strategy for their business, who need to think about what they're going to do in the future. And I did that part-time for a while. And then my first client took half my time, and then they wanted 3/4 of my time. And then, how in the movies you see somebody write a number on a piece of paper and they sort of slide it across the desk. Yeah. The guy asked me what it would take to go full time. And I said, well, first of all, I'm not closing my business. This is my business. And someday I want to do it full time. But I slid the note across the desk, and he gave me the money. He gave me the salary. So I got out of full-time consulting for a little while for that job, and then one other. And then in 2018, I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm doing my thing. And I added the executive coaching element to my business and took it full time. Mm-hmm. And I will say, being in insurance really prepared me for that. Having that exposure to all different types of businesses and how it works, understanding what liability is and how it works, get into some of the legal stuff. Mm-hmm. Just it was a great way to get started. So in 2018, I said, that's it. It's over. I'm working for me. I'm a solopreneur. I wanted to stay a solopreneur. Yeah. I had no intention of hiring full-time employees or even part-time employees. I have 3 wonderful organizations that help me with admin work. My admin person owns a business that's a virtual assistant type business. She's a contract employee for a few hours a month. I have a woman who has a few hours a month building my website, and she does all my book publishing, and she's incredible. Mm. And then I also have a company that helps me with the computers, and I spend money with them every month just so I can call them and say, what the heck is this thing doing today? Technology is sometimes interesting. Yeah. And so they're on call sort of, and I can always call them or email them, and they can just log into my computer and fix whatever's going on. So you can't do these things alone, but I wanted to never have employees again. And I'm probably going to retire in 10 or 15 years, but my husband is 10 years younger than me. Well, he's 9 years younger than me. So I'm going to work until he doesn't, is kind of how I feel about it. So it's been a blast.
So tell us what you do in your business. What kind of business do you have today?
Well, my vision statement, of course, as a strategist, is one of the things I do is build strategy plans for businesses. And I can work with a one-person business, or have had businesses that have 500 people that I've helped. When I did mine, which I didn't at first, because how the shoemaker's kid never has. So finally one day I said, I better do this for me. And I created my value statement. I always had a purpose statement for the business: to be a friend first, to live in the truth, and to serve graciously. Mm-hmm. But then I decided I'd build a vision statement, because the biggest thing I see when I'm coaching executives is that people aren't happy in their jobs. And I thought, what if my vision statement was joy in the workplace? That whatever I do, I want to build people's careers so that they're having fun, that life is good. Mm-hmm. And I realized after lots of research that my mission statement should be to build better bosses, because if the boss isn't any good, nothing else works. Mm-hmm. And I've had lots of experience with that myself. I've had wonderful, wonderful bosses. I've had a couple of ringers, mm-hmm. a couple that weren't so great. And there's a lot of research on that. My favorite business book, even more than my own books, is called First Break All the Rules.
Yes. Love that book.
Wonderful book. And that book proved to me 25 years ago when it came out that the boss matters. And so now everything I do centers around that. I have the strategy workshop. It's called the Abiding Strategy Workshop. And it's a one-day strategy event where you bring the team in and we build your 3 to 5 year strategy. We talk about what your legacy, your 100-year legacy will be. And that builds a platform around the communication of things. What are your values? What's your vision? What's your mission for the company? How are you going to get there? And then added to that, I do strategy coaching. So they can hire me after the strategy workshop to come in and coach them through how to implement the plan. I can call them once a month. I can do a workshop with them once a quarter, however they want it. So sometimes I'm continuing with a company for a while after they build their strategy to help make sure they get it done and hold them accountable and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So I call that strategy coaching. Mm-hmm. And then I also have every once in a while, I'll go to a conference and I'll be the platform speaker at a conference and, kick it off with a big rah-rah session. And it's usually around the book with the animals because people love that kickoff. They just think it's fun to hear all the animal stories. And I do a lot of corporate training. I actually have a couple new products coming out next year around the idea of having people get together and meet with me and learn from me, and then also learn from each other. And it's a whole new idea and concept that I'm coming out with in a couple of months. And this is more of a membership, but it includes a lot of education for you and your organization. Because I love to teach. My grandmother was a tutor. My mother was a substitute teacher. My grandfather was a minister. I think the idea of teaching and bringing knowledge to people is just a part of my DNA. And yes, somebody just popped up a message that said it's strategy and execution. Yes, sir, or ma'am. I couldn't see who wrote it. The reason mine is unique is because I help with execution, and that's very unusual for most strategists. So.
Yeah, so we can kind of see that come through your Gallup CliftonStrengths, which, by the way, isn't that who wrote First Break All the Rules?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It was Marcus Buckingham was part of the Gallup crew that did that. Yes, he kind of led the writing, but it was a 20-year Gallup study. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you guys are starting to hear her learner come through, right? That love for learning, the love for teaching, the love for consulting. The word joy popped in there.
Positivity.
As a mission statement, which comes right out of that strength of positivity. And then I also, heard you say, obviously, public speaking, which is the woo and communication and sort of that sales aspect. You said you love to coach others as well, which is the maximizer. And then I also heard you say that, you're starting with the strategy first, but then there's this execution that comes in behind that, which we can see that even in your own profile, why that's important to you, because you have a ranger belief and responsibility all filing in right behind your influential strengths and your strategic thinking strengths.
Yeah. When I took the profile in 2013, I also had achiever. I don't remember which flip-flopped, but achiever was in there. So this idea of being able to open my own business, when I took it in 2013 and that came out, I was like, oh, good. I do have what it takes to make this work. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, you've also written a couple of books. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Sure. My first book came out in 2013 and it's been republished twice because I just kept refining the thing. And by the way, just kept getting more animals. So every time I get a new animal, I feel like, oh, I have to add a chapter to the book. So the third edition and final edition is the one that you see in the picture on the screen there. And it's taking in Stray's leadership lessons from unexpected places. Sorry. And the idea was, if all these animals in my life should mean something to me, how do I apply that to work? And how do I use that with this platform speaking, keynote type speaking I wanted to do? So I went to a National Speakers Association meeting, the only one I've ever attended. And this woman, amazing woman, Sam Horn, said, draw a picture of the cover of your book and that will get you going. And it just planted the seed in my mind. She said, write what you love. And I love animals. I would have 1,000 if I could afford it. So I thought, well, how do I take that and put it together with my love of leadership? And one of the chapters is about my dog Angel, and she's a communicator. She used every part of her body, every sound she could make. She would communicate what she needed with us. And so I wrote a little section on communication, and I told a bunch of stories about Angel. And then, there was others. My bird was Fearless, this little tiny 7-inch long bird, but would run around my house like he owned the place. He was totally fearless. So I just wrap the stories around those lessons, and I think people like it when they read it. And then the second book came out just a couple of years ago in 22, and I wanted to put in writing the way I run the strategy sessions, because what I learned, the more I did them, the more I realized how different my method is. I don't do a strategy session, I guess, like most others, maybe one or two others that use elements that I use, but people kept telling me how different it was. And so I thought, well, maybe I need to document it and have it kind of owned by me, right? And that's when I changed the business name to Abiding Strategy. That was in 2020. And the book name is Abiding Strategies, it's a plural, Build Your Best Business Foundation. And I put down all of the elements and steps so that you could theoretically read the book and write your own plan.
Nice.
The other piece about that book, the other thing that's so important to me, is that everyone be able to have a strategic plan. When you hire me, it's going to cost you some money, right? But if you buy my book for $15 and you use the companion workbook that's online on my website and it's free, or you can spend $695 on my webinar. Those are both much more affordable ways to write the plan. And for me, it was more important that everybody have access. I need business owners to understand that this is a critical way to be successful. Mm-hmm. And it's not accessible to every business. Everyone can't spend what most strategists charge is $30,000. I'm nowhere near that expensive, but that's out of range for lots of people. Mm-hmm. So I thought, let's put all this down so people can get it and have access to it. And if they have to do it themselves, that's okay, as long as they do. Because 80% of American businesses don't have any plan at all. Mm-hmm. And I just can't live that way. The ranger in me, the maximizer in me, I couldn't do it without a plan. So,
and do you specifically go in and focus on a specific part of strategy? So for example, there might be product strategy or a communication strategy or a technical strategy. Like, is there, I know you said business, but to me, business is kind of like this open space. Right. Maybe that's because you do, a variety of different types of strategies, but I wanted to ask if there is specific sets of strategies that you get involved in.
Well, so the short answer to that is it is an overall business strategy, but we do then narrow it down to the different areas of need for the business, which might include communication or marketing or sales. Or, for example, we'll first say, what are your values? Who are you as a business? Then why are you in business? As in, what's your 100-year legacy? Why are you doing this instead of something else? Mm-hmm. You can pick any business. Why did you pick this one? That's your why statement. And then the what you're going to do is the mission or the thing that you're going to do to get to those goals of the 100-year legacy, to get to those values. You're going to hire and fire to those values. But then the 3 pillars that we put together, it's always at least 3, are what are you going to do with the people, whether it's your customers or your staff? How are you going to maximize the use of those folks? How are you going to maximize your growth in your sales? And then there's another pillar always around revenue. We don't put dollars amounts in there, but we do talk about how are you going to get to the revenue you need to go where you want to go with your business. So there's lots of things there. We might talk about fundraisers if it's a nonprofit. We might talk about adding a product if it's a business that's building products. We might talk about adding a service and how do you get to that? How do you get it added? How do you price it? All that stuff. And then there's always a third pillar. A lot of times it's innovation, or sometimes it's some big project that's coming up, like when Grace Grapevine needed to build a new building. That whole third pillar was all about the things that they needed to do to get the building built. And so it flexes based on what the company's going through, what time frame they're in, what do they need, and we build the plan around all that. And then, of course, I stay involved if they want me to, and that also helps me adjust it for them as they go if needed.
And when I hear you speak, I hear it from the business side. Obviously, I run a business, so it's very interesting and appealing from that angle. But I also hear it from the personal side, that everybody should be reading this book and going through this and writing all this stuff down for thyself,
Yeah.
who am I, what am I contributing? How much do I cost to an
Yeah.
organization if you're going to bring me on? Like, I think that if people, take the time to do this type of exercise for themselves, it all becomes a lot more clear about how to proceed forward. Would you agree with that?
Well, it can't hurt. Having a plan for your life is better than just letting life roll over you, right? One of the things I say in management too, when I'm teaching people the difference between management and leadership, is not to be a conveyor belt leader or conveyor belt manager. Don't just do whatever's in front of you. Plan out what you're going to do. And too many people let life sort of just go by them like a conveyor belt, right? And I'll just do whatever's rolling in front of me at the moment. And that's just, we only get one life. We only get one chance at these things. I totally agree with you that everyone should be thinking about what's my roadmap for life and how am I going to get the most out of my life. And I think that's where some of the joy comes back in, being able to plan. We live in the greatest country on the planet. We can do pretty much anything we want to if we plan well and pay attention. It makes all the difference in the world. So yeah, I'd love it if people would read the book for personal use.
Yeah. And then also just thinking about every single week, am I staying in that lane? Am I staying in that lane? Or am I getting distracted or pulled or veered off? And, like you said, with the things that are popping up right in front of you and are seemingly important right there in the moment, but in the big picture, you should probably be ignoring some of those things and focusing on, these other aspects that are going to have a greater impact to the bottom line.
Right. Well, and the companion workbook at abidingstrategy.com, if you go to the books page, click into the book section and scroll down, there's a light blue box.
Let's check
the
it out.
companion workbook is free.
Let's
and
do it.
You can download that thing and use it for yourselves. Even if you don't want to spend the $15 on the book on Amazon, that's fine. Use the workbook for free.
And it's abidingstrategies.com, correct?
Strategy singular. Yeah. Abidingstrategy.com. Although I think Abiding Strategies, I bought it and it links over. I can't remember, but.
Okay. Was this it?
There you go. Yep. And go over to services. And then books.
I don't see books.
Just say author. Yeah, author.
Oh, author.
There it is. Yep. And then if you scroll down and click into the book section where it says author, right there, that blue button under author.
Oh, right here. Read more.
Yep. Click there.
Yeah.
And then scroll down and you'll see a big light blue box on the lower left. It needs to load. It's not getting the color yet, but. Okay, scroll down a little bit more. And right there, that light blue box. Yep. It'll ask you for your email. It will send you the PDF of the workbook.
Nice. Thank you so much.
And this is a step-by-step. It walks you all the way through the planning process.
That's amazing. Thank you, Lisa.
You know what? I don't advertise that big time or anything, but I'd never want somebody to not be able to have a plan because they don't have the money. There it is for you for free.
Yep. That's awesome. So I'm going to take a pause for just a second. Is there anybody on the call right at the moment that has some burning question that they'd like to ask Lisa?
I
was waiting for you.
But I want to throw it out to anybody else first who may have questions before me.
Anybody else have a question before Jay gets going? All right, Jay, floor is yours.
All right. Hey, Lisa, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for coming and joining today's thing. So far, it has been amazing to hear your journey and just kind of everything you've developed for yourself. So kudos to you and congratulations for continuing to create a great brand for yourself. So this is awesome. I wonder, and this has been on my mind a lot lately, the dynamics since COVID. My mutant power is networking, but it seems like the barriers to connect with people have it's gotten very, very difficult for people to connect with people since COVID. And I think some of the factors are people are being drawn into like Teams meetings like all day, right? Like it's meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting.
Yeah.
And we're not having hallway conversations anymore. It's very deliberate kind of interactions. How are you seeing, that's just one example of a change that's happened, right, in the business world that's happening, not even taking into consideration the AI, X factor that's now happening.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you're kind of seeing that you've noticed in your coaching you are helping people get now? Because the landscape has so changed that some of those tried and true methods that used to work for people aren't being as effective as they used to be. Can you give us some examples of some of the things you're seeing out there now, and
Sure. Yeah.
some suggestions?
Well, so there's two angles on this one. The first one is networking for the sake of networking and building your own business if you have one, which is completely different now. And then there's also the networking internally at companies. So I'll start with the external. I have simply had to go to more meetings more often, but what I'm decided to do is to focus more on one group or one section or one concept. So I've got the South Lake Chamber of Commerce, I've got the Cowtown executives, and that's it. I don't network anywhere else, but I go really deep in those. I'm on their boards. I help them with planning events. I go to everything they do, so that what I'm building is stronger but fewer relationships. Instead of going to 5 different chambers or 6 different networking groups or whatever, I'm just really, really digging into the ones I found that I liked. And I've started a few and quit them early because I couldn't find my people. You got to find your people. Once you do that and you get to know people, they start to trust you, and they're going to think about you when they need something. I can't think of any other way to do it. I did a few online networking things and they just didn't work. It's just not the same. You don't get that same warmth from people. You're not shaking their hands. So for me, what has worked is to get a little deeper, but in fewer groups. Internally, though, with clients, this has been a huge thing. It's giant because so many of them are having to go to at-home work to retain their best employees. There's situations, I've got a couple situations where someone said, you either let me work from home or I'm going to quit and go to somebody who does. Or where one client wanted to move all of his office. He had an office in New York. He wanted to move everybody from New York here to his place here in DFW. He got so much resistance that he ended up shrinking the office up there, letting some people work from home. And then a few did move down here to DFW. So the world is really changing, and I don't think we've settled on anything, and I frankly don't think we will. I think we're always going to be hybrid. I think people have learned, like I have. I don't have an office anymore. I sit in my beautiful office at home. I talk to my clients via Zoom or via phone calls. But if they want an in-person meeting, well, we make one. We just go to a restaurant, or I go to their office, or we go to the country club. I don't need an office anymore. So I feel like the in-office changes are very significant. And you said something important, really important. The hallway conversations aren't happening. So what we know about the psychology, I'm a student of brain science. I follow that stuff. I'm no expert. I'm just a student. But what we're learning is that those hallway conversations were more critical than we knew. The old management style that said, get to your desk and get to work and don't stand around the water cooler and all that, it was wrong. Those hallway conversations are now missing. Yeah, I see that. The hallway conversations are now missing. The relationships aren't being built. The trust isn't being built. I'm having to make presentations to companies. I do corporate training all the time. I'm having to teach about trust. How do you build it? What do you do with it? People have forgotten. They've just forgotten how to have one-to-one, face-to-face relationships. So what I'm experiencing now with clients is that they're having to make a monthly meeting where everybody is required to come in, and they have a big lunch and they have some State of the Union type, conversations, and they let people connect. They're having more bowling leagues, more softball leagues, more office time availability for people to have social interaction because they can't get it at the office anymore, or they're not getting as much of it, or some people are missing from it. So you're going to have to be now more intentional. In fact, it was my word of the year last year. I always have a word for every year. This year it's joy. Last year it was intentionality. let's be more intentional about getting this stuff done. And when you do that, you get back what you've lost from the hallway conversations, at least most of it. Did that help?
Of course, I'm trying to talk to you on mute. So, but no, that was awesome. That was really, really useful. Another thing that I'll throw out there, a pattern that I've seen that I'm actually being asked for a job potentially, is I'm seeing that companies have hired younger people. And now after 6 months or a year of having those younger people, they realize they don't have the problem solving skills they wish they had.
Right.
So they are now having to hire people who are more senior to come in and coach and talk to those people and help them see the bigger picture, because they're being so focused that they're creating those silos within organizations are actually getting worse since COVID, as opposed to better, because the messaging is you need to keep your head down and just do your job if you want to keep it. And or that external communication and internal communication is being affected by that messaging. So I know you and I could talk forever, and I don't want to take this over from Brandy, so I'm going to throw it back to you, Brandy. But thank you so much for those insights, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jay.
Brandy, can I ask a question?
Absolutely, Janet.
Okay, this may kind of follows what Jay was saying. I've noticed, like, when I've interviewed, it's been with the younger people, and it's like they don't know what to do. It's like they don't know how to make you feel comfortable in a Zoom interview. And the ones I've talked to just stare at me like deers in the headlight, when I'm trying to, make conversation or respond. There's no, I guess, flexibility or fluid in the process. It doesn't appears anymore.
Yeah, there's a tendency in the screening interviews to throw that to the lowest person on the totem pole in the HR department. And what they're really looking for that first screening interview is, can you put on a good face? Can you talk to them? Do you answer questions quickly? Do you meet the criteria they put out? But they're not trying to engage you at all at that level. Usually, if it's the first interview, they're just screening you to make sure that you are what you said you were in your resume or cover letter, or whatever. I hope no one is hiring anyone without meeting them face to face. Frankly, I think that would be a horrible mistake. If you don't get in front of a person, you don't have there's no way you have the same reaction as on a Zoom call. The reason for that is scientific, it's physiological. When we are within 3 feet of another person, our heartbeats align. We feel each other's, there's a hormonal response. I forget the name of it. Like I said, I'm not a scientist. There's also that warmth and sense of how the body language is being used. I mean, right now, for me to use my hands in a normal way, I have to raise them up for you to see them. You're not seeing my body language, right? You can't see that on these calls. The tone of voice you can get on a Zoom mostly, but there's so many elements to human interaction and human relationships that cannot be conveyed over the internet. And so if you get to second and third and fourth interviews, Janet, I hope that it's better and that you have someone who actually knows how to do interviewing. It's not an innate skill. Interviewing is a very, very specific science that should be trained, and an HR professional should be doing it. But a lot of times those first interviews are not like that at all. And that's why you're getting the younger folks. They're the newbies who haven't learned that stuff yet, and they're just checking boxes to make sure that you qualify.
And I'm not trying to sound confrontational. I was just going to say,
I know.
Mine have been, they have not been the HR people. They've been the people that I would be working for that have responded that way. Like,
and that's the other problem, is they are not the people that are in HR. And HR is a very specific science, the way you interview someone and learn about them. So that's another problem. They probably don't know what to ask. So maybe you can come prepared with lots of questions for them about their company. And maybe you can go ahead and say, hey, let me tell you about myself. And you just say what you think you need to say instead of waiting for them to ask.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Lisa, one of the things I love covering on these discussions is how you discovered what you are innately good at. And how you took that and said, okay, what am I going to do with this? Now that I really understand what my unique talents and gifts are, I'm going to do this with it. Because when I look at your strengths, I see the natural influence that you have, the natural ability to coach and help others, the high communication and the ability to learn and teach others things, all in a positive way. Like, it all just comes shining through here, which means you've landed in a brilliant, beautiful spot for yourself. You've actually maximized yourself. But we don't come out of the womb understanding that, right? It takes us time to come around to that, figure that out, dig our heels in, have some experiences, and then go, okay, this is it. This is what's right for me. So could you help us understand how you really identified how to maximize your own strengths?
Well, so I'll say this. It came very, very early for me, all about around the age of 6, maybe 7.
It's amazing.
Very unusual. I hear people
Lucky
tell
you.
me how rare that is. Yeah. So I never wanted to be a ballerina or a fireman or any of those things. I'll tell you a couple stories. My grandfather was a Lutheran minister, and because my dad was military, when I was 6, he was in Vietnam. My brothers were infants. So naturally, I get a lot of those leadership skills from my dad. That it's just innate in him too, and it's in my DNA. But Grandpa had this desk. In fact, it's the desk that sits in my office today. And I would sit at his desk and I would play with the things on his desk: paper clips, scissors. I'd be cutting things out of the paper. I was stapling papers, writing. He had an old typewriter, the first kind of typewriter, right?
Yeah.
This was not electric even.
Yeah.
And I would, clunk, clunk, clunk. And I would do that. I would type. And I'll never forget this. My grandmother came to me and said, "Oh, honey, you're going to be a great secretary someday." And I said, "Secretary?" She said, "Yeah, look at you. You're great at the desk, whatever." And I said, "Grandma, I'm going to be the boss." I was 6.
Yeah.
I knew it. The other funny story is that on the playground, I got the nickname the Little General because we'd come out of the schoolroom and I went to half of my, I would say half of my elementary school years, 6 of my 12 years, I was in sort of private school because it was on military bases. And it was very much like a private school would be today, with very small classes and teachers and everything. So we'd go out on the playground and I would be the one to decide whether we're going to play dodgeball or jumping rope. People just naturally came to me and said, "What are we going to do today?" I never asked for it. It just comes out of me. And so when I was in insurance, I just naturally I kept changing roles and changing jobs over time. I think the shortest time I was in a job was 2 years. The longest was 11. But every time I would roll up a little bit up the ladder, every job, and it just comes naturally to me. So when I decided to go into coaching and keynote speaking, I decided that's what I needed to talk about: leadership and management and how to get the most out of yourself, because I had just naturally been able to do it. And people kept telling me how rare that was. Not everybody can do that. And I thought, well, let me teach them how. Let me show people how to bring the best in themselves out.
Mm-hmm. And so if you had to pick a couple of those key lessons, could you share some of them with us that you like to teach?
Well, absolutely. One of the things that I have my clients do is write a full CV. My curriculum vitae is 8 pages long. It's in third party person. Look it up if you don't have one. And when you're writing it, as if you're my client and I'm having you write one for some reason, which happens occasionally, I tell them to think about, as they're writing their expanded resume, what's fun to write about, what makes you smile, what parts of your life, your job, your history just are great to write about and you want to talk about them, and what parts are you rushing through because you hated that phase in your life. And then we talk about it, and I help them to see why they got more joy out of that one writing section versus the other writing section. It's quicker, it's easier, but it's also so cathartic and so validating, I guess, is self-validation that you get when you're writing a full CV, a really long in third party, Ms. Harrington did, that kind of thing. It's so validating to see what you've really accomplished over your life. And you can feel it when you're writing that. What was the thing that brought you joy? And let's go do more of that thing. So writing a CV is a great idea. If you have a a friend or somebody who you can talk to about, where do you see me glowing? Where am I happy? What are the things that I wake up in the morning and I love to go do? That's what you should be doing for a living, whatever that is. There are ways to take hobbies and make them into businesses. There's ways to get with friends who can help guide you to, okay, you're miserable in this. So the other big tip is ask for help, because most people won't. The hardest 3 words in the English language is not "I love you," it's "I need help." People don't want to ask for help. And there is science behind that. There's the tribal influence, the fact that we are herd animals, HERD. We belong in a group. And when we were developing as humans, to say you needed help was to show weakness, and weakness was a negative. But it's not a negative today. There are lots of ways you can get help, and some of them for free. And if you're afraid to ask for help, that's the first thing to get over. Get help if you don't know. So, and I see the comment. Yes, I can give you a whole list of books. I will email it to Brandy. I have a pre-done list of all my favorite books, and Brandy can send it out to everyone.
What else from the group? Is there any other questions that have popped up here? Jay, do you have another one?
I always have questions, but I want to put it on reserve because I know there's more goodness coming. So I want to.
We'll save you 5 minutes at the end.
All right. Yes, I want Lisa to keep going, because this is pure gold. Thank you.
All right. So Lisa, another one of the questions I like to address with speakers like you who are very, very in tune is also, you and I understand that maximizing our top 1 to 10 strengths is crucial. It's key, but it's also really important to understand what we're not.
Yeah.
And understanding who our partners are and what we need to be successful. So it was so glorious to hear you say that you have 3 partners in the beginning, your tech person, your admin, and your publisher, because you understand that in order to get done what you need to get done, you are not going to be the one to do it all, but rather you're going to seek help from some other people and create some partnerships with other people that will allow you to achieve the final result. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, there's a couple of really good points in there. The first one is never, ever try to do things you don't want to do. I mean, every job has an element or 2 here and there. I have to run an Excel spreadsheet occasionally, and okay, right. I don't want to do that, but I got to, like Jay. But I'll tell you, once you start realizing that there's something you don't want, that it's just no fun for you. I dread this. I don't want to get up today and do this. Cut that stuff out of your life. Life is too short. There are lots of people out there who will want to do whatever the thing is that you don't want to do. And that's like, for me, I could do the social media posts. I don't want to, but Wendy is incredible. If you follow me on Facebook, I have an Abiding Strategy page. You'll see she does amazing work. She gets the message out for me. Why should I spend time doing that? I always have said, never spend time doing a job that you could hire for less. So if you're, whatever the hourly rate is, think of it that way. What's your hourly rate? What are you paying that other person? Don't spend $100 an hour doing a $10 an hour job. And that's old management school stuff, but it's still true today. So if there's a way to hire someone to help, think of it this way too. You're getting those human social interaction things that Jay was talking about earlier, because you do have a team, even though it's not your full-time team. That's one element too of it. You hire people to do what you would be inefficient at doing. It doesn't mean you can't. Don't take it away from yourself and think, oh, I'm a failure because I can't do this thing. You just don't want to, and life is too short. And there are people who do want to, who will be fabulous at it for you. So that's part of my answer for that. The other thing is, if you are really looking for joy in your life, and you are doing something out of obligation, there are times, there are seasons when you know what, you've got to sling drinks or do dishes or serve at a restaurant because your acting career hasn't taken off yet. Even Paul built tents in order to finance his mission, right? In the Bible. So if you have to do that, have your plan for your life laid out so that you have that light at the end of the tunnel. So, okay, this is a season. This is a temporary thing I'm having to do to get me to the next step. So instead of feeling depressed because you're having to do something that you don't like to do for a while, or a project within your own business that you just don't like because, I don't know, your web person left or retired, which is coming up for me, I'm going to hate it. At least you know that it's just temporary, that this is just a season you're going through and that you will get to the other side because you're going to work your plan. You're going to stick to the plan and stick to the steps. I tell people all the time that the plans keep them away from scope creep. So, and I was with a client one time, they said, I've never heard anyone say scope creep that wasn't in IT. And, but it worked for all of us. We tend to chase after the next shiny object and we forget the plan that we had. Mm-hmm. And so keeping that focus will also help you stay on track with who should I hire? What do I love to do? How do I get this done in a way that keeps me happy and uses my best talents? The second piece to what I want to say about that is you do have to manage your weaknesses. And another book that I'll recommend that came out of the same study as First Break All the Rules is called Soar with Your Strengths. And they tell this little parable, this little analogy about a rabbit who was happy in school because in the first grade and the second grade, he got to run and jump and hop. And that's what you do in first and second and third grades. In fourth grade, they taught him how to get out of the pond if he fell in, just enough so he wouldn't drown. But in fifth grade, they decided he needed to really learn to swim. He's a rabbit. Rabbits are never going to swim well. So now by high school, he can't run or jump anymore because they took him out of all those classes because, oh, you know how to do that. So his muscles atrophied, his running and jumping muscles. And he's a terrible swimmer because he's a rabbit, okay? Rabbits don't swim. And so now he's mediocre at everything. And it's a big indictment on our school system, which we won't get into today. But that book was instrumental to me in figuring out how to run my practice and help people be who they are and just manage the weaknesses. Don't try to fix the weaknesses, just manage them. Mm-hmm. I don't balance my checkbook, but I get it done. I just don't like doing it myself. That kind of thing, right?
Right.
Don't judge a fish by its ability to climb trees. That's Einstein. That's right. That was quoted, I think, in that book too. It's amazing. But we do it all day long. We train our children that way in our silly school system. We teach them to be mediocre because we got to have a little bit of everything. And that's not true. And it's one of my big joy in the workplace initiatives is let's teach people to stop doing that. Do what brings you joy and let somebody else do the other part.
Yeah. And I think the part that's missing greatly on that is understanding someone's differences.
Absolutely.
Because if we are wired a certain way, then we're trying really hard to help someone. And, we're trying to raise our children in a way that would work for us. And we're trying to give them everything that we think they need based on what we need. But I think the hardest thing to do is to step back and say, who are you uniquely away from my own paradigm?
Well, we even have that problem with communication in business. So we're not only projecting our needs on our children, and I'm not saying that too emphatically because I don't have children, so I have no idea what that would be. But we have this tendency to project on the people that we work with, whether they're above us or below us on the org chart. We project our needs. We communicate the way we like to be communicated to. And one of my most popular things I talk to people about and coach on in groups is communication skills. And that's one of my strengths. So if you need someone to communicate in short, direct sentences, that doesn't mean everybody in the room needs that. So if you are the kind of person who likes to speak quickly and in short, strong sentences and just get it over with, and you don't sugarcoat, you may be hurting the feelings of someone else and you don't even know it. Because you're communicating the way you like it and not how they like it. And we have to learn that stuff. We're not born knowing this. We have to learn it.
And how do you coach people around, okay, I need to cater to you and I need to do things that make sense to you, and I need to interact with you in a way that works for you, and so on and so forth. But I also need to stay authentic to me.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help people find that balance?
That's fair, because we can't just turn into somebody else. And I always say that we're not trying to manipulate someone. I'm not trying to ever take you and turn you into me or vice versa. But we can ask questions of the person we're working with. And as a coach, I'm built around questions, right? That's the key to coaching, is asking the right questions. Mm-hmm. So as a coach, I'll say, what style do you want? What style do you need? I'll run a strengths finders or something similar on all my clients so that they know, and I know what their basic skills are. Sometimes we only do the top 6, but a lot of times it's more. And that way we can communicate with each other. It's like, okay, I'm being too strong with you today. Or I'll know, because I'm trained in coaching, I can tell by their tone of voice, which is the other thing about knowing body language and tone of voice, and whether the words are only 7%, the words we choose. Everything else is tone of voice and body language for the messaging that you get. And so when I'm talking to someone and I start learning their style, I'll say, does that work for you? How does this work for you? What do you need from me? We don't do that enough. We don't ask other people what they need or how they need us to work with them. Do you like email? Do you like text? Do you like a phone call? Or God knows, however other many ways we have to communicate these days. I've had to say to people, do not communicate with me for business via LinkedIn or Facebook messaging. I don't use that for official stuff. I use email for official stuff. I use text when it's where we go into lunch, right? That's not a business communication model, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. If somebody else needs that and they're my client, I'll do what they need me to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hope I answered that. I kind of got rambling.
Oh, that's okay. It's a very tough thing to do, right? Is to remain yourself and be yourself and do things the way you like to do it. But then also, when you're colliding with another human in an interaction, you can't just be you, fully you. You've got to also go, okay, how do I be me, but then also interact with this person in a way that causes success, right? Causes the interaction to have success, which may be having to cater, and I think, and maybe it comes down to what you care most about, right? Do you care most about being authentic to you? Do you care most about the other person and catering to them? Or do you care most about a successful interaction, for example? Like, there's many ways we could define success in that moment for different people.
For me, because most of my clients are at the executive level, they're either vice president or president or CEO or something. For the most part, I'm working with people that are bosses, that have lots of people downstream. And I tell them all the time, it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's never going to be about you. Mm-hmm. I don't care that you're the owner or the CEO, or if you want the ship not to sink, you have to do what they need as your employees. Now, that doesn't mean you completely turn yourself around or do something that's disingenuous to who you are, but communication style has to be whatever they need so that they can hear you, so that they do receive the message. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard sometimes for a CEO to get around this. There's this common theme out there that I'm completely against, which is first take care of your people. You guys, that doesn't work. You first take care of the ship. The ship has to stay afloat. Then you take care of the people. So if anybody's a Star Trek fan, there's a scene in one of the old Star Trek's Next Gen scene where the woman has to put somebody in a situation where fixing the ship causes them to die. And it happens over and over again in those kind of stories, right? Where I'm going to sacrifice myself in order to fix the ship and save 1,100 souls or whatever it is. That's the mentality that a good leader has. They will sacrifice themselves for the sake of the ship. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that in a normal everyday communication that you have to compromise your values or lose your integrity. Or we're talking about just style of communication. We're not saying that you just roll over and do what everybody else wants. It's the way you say it, the words you choose, the inflections you have, the way your facial expressions are. Those things can communicate just as much as words. And if you can manage all of that, which is a lot, I know, but if you can manage all of that so that they receive your message, the ship stays afloat and you do get to take care of the people. Yeah. So if the ship sinks, everybody goes.
And for me personally, it's been also changing my own intent. when I change the way that I'm coming at something, a
Mhm.
lot of those things that you just said naturally change anyway. So
Mhm.
for example, if I actually care, then all of
Yeah.
a sudden my communication becomes caring and
Yes.
is received that way. But I kind of have to dig deep around changing my intent sometimes in order to get the right message across, especially if I'm the way I am, which is very, sort of candid, wear your emotions on your sleeves type person. It's really
Yeah.
important for someone like me to make sure that my intent is in the right place.
Well, and not everybody will have the values of caring, or
Mhm.
not everybody will have the value of keeping the ship afloat. There are some people out there that are me only.
Yep.
And God bless them. I can't do it that way. That's why my purpose statement, my value statement is truth, friendship, service, grace, service. I'm always going to be first serving.
Yep.
There's another book. It's called The Go-Giver.
Oh yeah.
That's meant for people like us that think first of others. And it's a great book. And it talks about how that can also bring success.
Mhm.
If you really, really give to others, it always comes back. Zig Ziglar said it too. You can get anything you want in life as long as you help other people get what they want. It works.
And it's also, as an entrepreneur, you go through the phase of, I can't give to get. That doesn't work either. You actually just have to give freely.
Give, just
Um,
give to give. That's right.
and that's when it all actually starts coming back around. Anybody else on the call have something they'd like to ask or interject or bring up?
I was going to ask about, well, it was two things. One really quick was, it seems that when she was saying she didn't like doing the social media thing, but she's a woo number one, I thought that she would jump on that one, but
I'll explain that if you want.
Observation.
It's not about not being on social media. It's about building the intricacies of building all those little memes and pictures and knowing how to set it up so that it'll go on LinkedIn and Facebook and whatever else that she uses. It's the building of it that I don't like. I'm on social media all the time and I share and I add things. I even edit what she posts sometimes, but the putting it together is a technology detail thing that I just never grabbed onto.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Then the main question I was going to ask you was, I see that your positivity is like number 5, but boy, it seems like the way y'all been talking, it'd be like your number 1. I mean,
well,
woo
is my number 1, and it's a very positive. It has that same element to it because I can express the positivity so easily. So that may be maybe that's where that is coming out as woo, but it looks like positivity.
So it's very important.
It is very important. Honestly, I don't know how people get through life without the positivity. There's so much ugliness in the world. The ability to look past that and see the beauty is a gift that God gave me. I
agree.
Couldn't live without it, because otherwise you just be depressed all the time. You have to find a way to see all that. Even if you don't have woo or positivity, I think it helps people survive, frankly. But yeah, I think one of the reasons it's so strong for me, because woo wasn't always my first. It used to be my 5th years ago when I was working for others. I think part of what's happened for me is that all that positivity and woo is coming out because I've landed where I needed to be. I'm truly in my calling at this point. This is my calling. And I was using a lot of elements of that calling for my whole career. My first official, real, out of college type job, I created a training manual for myself. Because as I was learning things, I was putting it together in a certain way, and it ended up being what everybody in the office wanted. And they started using my stuff as training material, even though I was just a really junior person at the company. So it's just become I've naturally filled it in, but now it's what I do all day long. I'm in my calling.
And I also think, something to tack onto that, David, is that the positioning of the strength is really also how accessible it is. So for Lisa, it's really accessible to get to positivity, where someone that has positivity lower, it's not that they can't get there. It's not that they can't get to it. It just might be a little bit more difficult to get to it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We all have all of it. It's just how hardwired is it, and how much do we have to work for it?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's that blue stripe right there at number 5, and then the next time it's that one lonely one right there, and then you go down farther and you get to 10.
What
But
else,
yeah.
guys? Anybody else have anything for Lisa they'd like to ask her while we have her time today?
Yeah, I always do, but I'm giving somebody else a chance. So
Anybody other than Jay and David?
Who hasn't spoken yet, right?
Hey guys, this is Gary.
Hi,
I
Gary.
know we're running a little short on time, but I just want to go back to something you said earlier about doing what you love. I grew up in an environment where the school of thought was sometimes the quickest way to ruin your hobby is to try and turn it into a job. So when you're looking for ways to do what you really love and find that place where you want to be, how do you fight those kinds of thoughts where you're gonna, once you try to make a living at it, it's no longer fun?
So that's where you get help, right? So the parts about building it into a business, you give to someone else to do. The hobby part that you love, that you want to do all day long because you want to do it, even if it was for free, that's the part you do. There are lots of ways that you can get help, whether it's fractional executives, whether it's getting a coach and getting a strategy, whether it's hiring a great admin or office manager. You can find the help for the parts you don't love, and then you get to do the piece that you love. So if you were a shoemaker and you love building shoes and that's what you want to do, you're not going to run the office. You're going to go to the bank and you're going to get the right financing, which is the other mistake a lot of business owners make. I made it. I bootstrapped my business on credit cards. Well, that was silly. I figured it out later and I went to the bank and all that. But you go to the bank with a great business plan, and you know someone who can help you with that. And then you go and you get the financing so that you can hire the right people to do the pieces that you don't want to do.
Great. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I've come away with today is the planning and the strategy behind it. And like you say, kind of outsourcing those things that you don't really love doing so that you can do the things that you love. That's
Right.
fantastic. Good
And where
stuff.
do where's the money coming in? I mean, if you're going to charge X per hour or X per boot, and that's valued at X per hour, you hire the rest of it because those services are less expensive. I got an email today from someone in the Philippines who has $14 an hour admins and accountants and social media people, and they all speak English, and it's $14 an hour. And I've used those services, not this particular company, but I've used services like that in the past, where just for a while you go get somebody to do that for you until you build up enough cash to pay for someone locally.
And then I also think that it's just a matter of being proactive about that, because we can all sit here and listen and talk about this today, but are you going to go step away from this call, sit down, write everything up, figure it out, and be and proactively implement it?
Intentionality, it's so important. So important. And like the lady Sam Horn told us in the National Speakers Association meeting all those years ago, draw it up, even if it's a sketch, even if it's messy, and stick it on your fridge. I don't care what small little thing you can put in front of you that you see every day, because the other thing about our brains that's so incredible is our subconscious will be working on it for us.
True.
If it's in front of you every day, your brain will work on it, even not consciously. And then suddenly one day you go, oh, here it is. This is how I do it. And you're good to go.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, Lisa, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate your time. It was excellent discussion. And if any of you need to get in touch with Lisa, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to put you all together.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful. So much fun.
Thank you.